Welcome into Hoopsville, everybody. You just heard me saying something about being on the air. Welcome into Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. Of course, we just got started. So welcome in. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. You can join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. You can also email us Hoopsville at D3Sports.com. I'm not promising we're going to have all our audio glitches worked out tonight, but we're going to do our best. A little late getting on the air because, well, we were working out some audio glitches. One way to light us better looks like it's backfiring too, because now you can see it in my glasses. Look, right there. You see there's a light down there. Guess we'll work on that. Or I just won't be able to wear glasses ever. One of the two. We'll figure it out. So here we are, live on the air. Thank you for joining us. It's a Thursday night. It is NCAA Convention Thursday night. That's just sad. We just had a food delivery order. That's not how Grubhub does it the best, but nonetheless, it is there. Anyway, so NCAA Convention, we'll talk about that in a moment. We'll talk about our guests coming up as well. And again, if you got questions for us, join us. Love to hear from you. Hopefully, stream sounds okay for you. We'll double check it as best we can everywhere we check it. Let's talk about guests. A little bit under the radar is kind of our theme tonight. Top 25. Two of the teams are in the top 25, but just barely. And two of them are not. Case Western Reserve, Todd McGuinness men's basketball program. You know I've talked about them quite a bit on this show. They are now in the top 25 at 24, tied for the highest ever for the program. We'll talk to Todd McGuinness coming up here shortly about his program. Marymount women's basketball coach Margaret White will join us. She's the new head coach at Marymount after a number of years at Ursinus. We'll talk to her about the program, maybe not having, a tremendous season by top 25 standards, but still a pretty good season. We'll talk to them about the battle there and the Atlantic East as well. We'll then hit the top 25 double take. Two new gentlemen will join us on the panel. Brendan Gulick and Scott Pederson will join us to give us their take on the top 25. I'll be honest, love to get a woman's take on it, though we haven't found someone who's not a coach who's going to probably be willing to come on. Now we'll switch gears, talk Oswego State up in the former East region, Region 3. Jason Leone will join us. They're ranked 25 in the latest top 25. We'll talk to him about that ranking and whatnot. And then Redlands women's basketball coach Rich Murphy will join us. They're having a great season overall. We'll talk about all of those particulars with him. They're barely getting any top 25 votes. So we'll talk about that. So that's kind of the theme, the under the radar per se, because teams are a little bit under the radar. Again, if you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville, email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. Join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville, where we're simulcasting the show as we speak. We'll try and keep an eye on things and make sure if you have questions there, we can try and get them answered. I know someone messaged us or direct messaged us either via Facebook or Twitter a couple times last show. Just FYI, a little challenging for us to, oh, shoot, that's interesting. We may not be on Facebook. Let's make sure we're on. That's interesting. I hadn't seen that before. It said test broadcast. I don't. How do we get it going live? Is the question. Huh. We'll try and make sure we're live on Facebook. I hadn't seen that one before. Sorry, folks. Got a little distracted. Tried something new, and it may have just backfired on us. I'll hit end test broadcast. Oh. Maybe we won't be on. That's unfortunate. We'll try and get on Facebook somehow. That didn't work the way we wanted it to, which is a wee bit on the frustrating side. We'll try and fix that in the commercial break. So there you go. Lots of ways to talk to us. Hope you're doing well and whatnot. Couple things of note. Again, the NCAA convention, real quick. Today was the all business session for all of the association, meaning all three divisions. And the conversation was had about the Constitution and changing the Constitution. I know a number of Division III schools and even maybe even a conference stood up to say how much they were against it. I've been texted by a few people who didn't like the fact that this constitution may go through because Division III isn't getting what many in Division III feel like it should get. I get all that. We had a special that we released on Tuesday where we discussed all of that and why Division III couldn't get some more money out of the deal. The real trick of the question became, if you don't approve it, nothing changes, and Division III doesn't necessarily get to go back to the table and better its position. If you approve it, we at least don't have to pay the overhead, and $1.5 million, $2 million a year can stay in the Division III budget. So it depends on how you look at that, right or wrong. I'd love to see more money. I'd love to see the division treated with a little bit more respect. But as a division that also doesn't bring in any revenue other than school dues, it's tough to try and ask for Division I's money. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm certainly not defending any particular position. Nonetheless, I needed a 2/3 majority, and it got it. 80% of the entire association voted for the new Constitution, so we now have a new Constitution. And how Division III moves forward on that, we shall see. Now what we will keep an eye on is the legislative items that are up for discussion. And those include whether to bring back the red shirt in Division III, whether that should be approved. Right now, if you practice an entire season with your team but do not play, you still lose a year of eligibility. There's talk of trying to bring that back. I've heard from some that will pass. I will be blunt. I think that's disappointing to hear because that is what I feel is the antithesis of Division III. The idea is not to come in and try and position yourself to be here 5 or 6 years, to be at the division for 5 or 6 years, to be at your institution for 5 or 6 years. This isn't a scholarship situation. And so to purposely bring that back, listen, there's hardship waivers that are allowed. There's opportunities to give student athletes that extra year of eligibility, especially in the middle of COVID, by the way. We have blanket waivers that got approved yet again. So there are positions in place that allow this all to play out. So I don't see any reason, to be perfectly honest, that we need a red shirt in Division III. Kind of glad we got rid of it. To see that it's coming back is disappointing. I'm hoping it gets voted down, but I'm hearing it may not be. Really, what might be better is to table it, to refer it, and let the division figure out itself under this new constitution to decide whether to bring it back. Another topic up for debate is the automatic qualifiers, whether we shrink down to 6 across all sports. We discussed that on the Hoopsville special that we released on Tuesday. If you have not heard that special, I highly recommend you take some time to go listen to it. It was a great roundtable conversation with 3 athletic directors, and Angel Mason from Barry, Stevie Baker-Watson from DePaul, Jason Fine from Bates, and Brad Banks, and the commissioner of the ODAC, had a great conversation, especially about the AQ. And really why that the more particular way of doing it in Division III that would be smarter would be to have different AQ numbers per sport. We discussed that. It seems like the AQ may pass. That is going to help a lot of sports. It's also going to maybe screw up a couple sports as well. And then, excuse my phone blinking and popping there. Then we also talked about other things like the football playing and practice changes and whether that should be split even into 3 bills. Pat Coleman certainly helped to try and break that down a little bit better as well. So lots to discuss. We had a great special on it, and that legislative session is ahead on Saturday. Friday, all the divisions get together for basically meetings and straw polls on future ideas and even straw polls on current legislation. That's sometimes how a legislative piece will actually get pulled completely from the conversation. Anyway, so it was an interesting convention already, but we're under a new constitution, the NCAA, and we'll see how Division III and all play out. Quick mention, Mike Miller at Messiah. Congratulations. Win number 700 last night. If we had been on top of things a little bit better, basically we had the wrong number, we would have made sure to get him on tonight's show. But unfortunately, we thought it was a little further away, and as a result, we'll have to get him on a future show. Also, quickly, we'll probably talk this about later in the show. Ryan Scott did a tremendously good article on the Around the Nation talking about minority coaches in Division III, something we touched on this show in the first half of the year, and something we will continue to touch on at the Hoopsville Marathon. We'll spin out Ryan's article a bit more and find out, we got a light we don't normally have on. We'll have a further discussion on that. Maybe we should have kept that on now that I look at it. Maybe that light needed to stay on after all. There we go. That's interesting. You let us know what you like better. Anyway, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll get going into our segments. Todd McGuinness of Case Western Reserve will join us to talk about his men's program, ranked 24th best ever in program history. What does that mean for the program? You're listening to Hoopsville. Presented by D3Hoops.com. We're coming to you from the NABC studios thanks to our partners at Blue Frame Technology and the Women's Basketball Coaches Association. Back with more after this.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
Hey guys, welcome back. We got Todd McGuinness. He can speak and you'll be able to hear him. I won't, which is a slight problem. So we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll have Todd McGuinness. I promise. We will. Somehow. It's how it works. I think. Back with more after this.
Receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor's Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
And welcome back to Hoopsville. You know, it likes doing that to us. Doesn't like us. The audio's okay. Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can always email us to Hoopsville at D3sports.com. Lots of ways you can contact us, and we'll certainly love to take your call, as it were. Try and answer your questions, whatever needs to be done. Let's get right into our next segment, because our next guest patiently waited for us to figure out what was a stupid gremlin in our system, but we finally figured it out. They are ranked the highest they've ever been in program history, really tying the mark that they were at a previous time. Nothing to shake a stick at. If you've been listening to the show for the last few months, you've heard me at least mention Case Western Reserve because, well, they seem to catch my attention because they seem to be playing.
We've been winning. Our assist totals are through the roof, and we have very unselfish guys, and they know who needs to be shooting, and it's an easy group to coach, and I just think that the upperclassmen are at the point where they're like, hey, we're going to play our butts off to make sure we don't lose this game. And, if we get beat, the other team better have their best effort because we're bringing our best effort every night.
Yeah, it's certainly impressive to watch, like I said. And I've certainly been impressed, especially since about December-ish. I am curious, and I kind of waited. UAA season is always a grind. You've gotten 2 games under your belt. Brandeis game not able to be played. First off, are you going to be able to make that one up, or is it just too difficult with the way the UAA is structured to try and make up any game in this conference unless it's your travel mate?
Yeah, I honestly don't know what's going on with the Brandeis game. There's been talk of when they're here maybe playing back-to-back or something like that. So I haven't. They would have to play a lot of games and 4 games in a weekend, and we'd have to play 3. I don't know how that would work. So sure. There really hasn't been that much talk. It hasn't been. It was postponed, I think, not canceled. So I think we're trying to figure that out. And what was the other part of that?
Well, the grind of the season in general. I mean, the UAA season is challenging for so many reasons. Let's not even talk about the fact. Well, I mean, you can add in COVID, adds on top of all that. You're just getting going here. How do you approach the UAA season at this point in each weekend? Yeah,
it's for people that haven't been through it. I was the assistant at Case, and I went to Hartwick, and you play Friday, Saturday there, and you might have a bus ride in between an Empire 8, or you're in Rochester, so that's not the worst. But here it's okay. You play Emory on Friday in Atlanta. You're flying to Rochester in the morning, playing Rochester Sunday, coming back, and everyone plays different styles. It's it's a bear. Like you're playing against Emory, who plays at a fast pace, trying to score a lot of points, and then you're playing Rochester, runs the Princeton offense for the day in between. So, you have to be pretty set in what you do on defense, and pretty I say simple, because if you're game planning game to game, it gets difficult at times, and it's just and then you look and you're like, okay, we have these two this week, and then we have Chicago and WashU, and then at Chicago and WashU. So it is a bear coming up here, and I think I read in our preview, 4 out of our next 6 games, teams are either ranked or receiving votes.
Yeah.
So it is, it's not for the faint of heart, and you need to be ready to go, because you could think, oh, we're playing great, and all of a sudden you play someone and you could lose by 30, and you don't even know what just happened.
Right.
And you thought you're primed to play great, and someone else is ready to go and sitting there for you.
And how do you think you match up with a WashU or an Emory? Just to name the next two kind of in the list, since you've already played Carnegie Mellon. How do you think you match up with the other two?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Emory has Matt Sneer, so can we guard him? They have Roman Williams, Nick Stuck, those names. Everyone knows those names. Jack Nolan, Justin Hardy, everyone knows those names there. And are we up to the challenge? I think we are. I hope we are, but you don't know until you play them. And so, they're good. You're watching them on film, and you're like, oh man, we got to take this away. Or we're watching Matt Sneer just hit fadeaway after fadeaway on guys today, and our guys are like, Coach, what the heck is this? I said, he's really good, guys. You're not a co-player of the year in the UA as a sophomore unless you're a really good player. And so it's just trying to be, take a little bit of stuff away. Can we keep scoring? Can we get enough stops? And because when we're in transition, we're pretty hard to stop. I think we're almost averaging 90 points, and we don't really run much. We just have good players, and someone's going to be open and they're going to make a shot. You're going to have to help off someone, and all of a sudden someone's going to be open, and if it's going in, we're really hard to beat.
With that in mind, how hard is, a little bit of a weird question. Previously here, you were at Hartwick. I'm curious, how much is it different for you coaching and recruiting for a UAA, or is there more similarities than we realize?
It's definitely different. It's definitely different because, working at such a prestigious school, the amount of inquiries you get from student athletes, the amount of people that want to come here, it's a little, our pool's narrowed down with the student athletes that, can get accepted into Case Western. A top 30 private research university is not an easy place to get into. So, I think it narrows it down, where at Hartwick, you could recruit everyone. You can recruit everyone, and here you can't, so your pool's really narrowed real quick, and, it needs to be focused. And we're not here trying to win at all costs. We're, these kids are here to get educated. Everyone's here to get education, but they got to be able to do the work. Because I think right now we have 5 pre-med guys on our team. We have 6 engineers, so we're all over the place.
Yeah.
We're not just, okay, we're in our business school or we're in this major. We're in labs, we practice, and we have guys running in from lab, running out to another lab. And so it's a unique situation. It's definitely, your pool's a little narrow. I think, you can get kids in a little bit earlier, so you're not in March and May trying to find kids. You already know who's going to be on your team. So it's a great place to recruit to. Case Western is such a great school, and it's kids want to be here, and they want to, they're coming here to go to Ohio State to med school, to go to, we have a couple guys at Ohio State med school, to Bob Fowler has a job at JP Morgan already next year, so our guys are already have their plans, where they're going, and, have numerous job offers coming into their senior years, trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives. So it's a great group because, you talk to some of them, and I always say when I walk in that room, I'm in our locker room, I'm probably the, not one of the smartest guys in there, but I did graduate from the Princeton of West Virginia and the Harvard online. So that's my claim is there, that I have that on the guys. It's that, with the Bethany and the Princeton.
I was going to say, I don't know if I want to know the answers, even though I do know at least one of them. I don't know if I want to know the answers. I'm sure your alma mater is thrilled at the reference.
Yeah, Princeton, West Virginia, #1 state ranked school in the state of West Virginia.
Yeah, fair point. I wonder if they'll change their mascot to the Tigers. That'll be interesting. Hey, sir, always love chatting with you. I'm sorry we had to kind of keep you waiting, truncate a little bit. Would love to talk more with you, but we got to let you go and get on to the rest of the show. But as always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
Thanks for having us. We're actually having spectators back, so we'll be back with some fans next weekend, and watch our broadcast. We have one of the best Division III broadcasts around. So if you're bored tomorrow, tune in at 5:30. They moved, our games, the men's games are at 5:30 this year. So, if you need something to do tomorrow.
You're just trying to stir the pot on Twitter, aren't you now, with this comment?
Our broadcast is great.
Okay.
Ron Jantz is the best out there. So watch it tomorrow and let me know what you think.
You're just trying to get that Y school to get back into the conversation somehow, because they're going to argue that they're the best. And now I'm going to have to talk about them again. And come on, you're killing me, Smalls. Hey, Todd, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it. Take care of yourself. We'll look forward to talking to you down the road.
All right, see you.
He's Todd McGuinness joining us from Case Western Reserve on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline. Appreciate him joining us. UAA race, I think, is going to be more interesting than some on Twitter think it's going to be, but I digress. Take another break. When we come back, we'll go down outside D.C., talk to Marymount women's basketball. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA and ABC studios. More when we come back.
College basketball lives in Kansas City at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center. The College Basketball Experience is the place to get your game on. It's not a museum, it's an experience you won't forget. Discover the history of the game in the National Collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, featuring the Gallery of Honor, Mentor's Circle, and Honor Theater. Suit up in the latest CBE logoed Nike gear at the CBE Hoop Shop. Elevate your game today and visit the house that college basketball built.
Why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics, and in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com. We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. As we continue along, I know we went off the air during that Case Western Reserve interview. We apologize for that. We are going to, hey, Andy's back. We are going to try and figure out why that happened, but we'll also try and, we'll let you know. If you missed it, we're going to replace the video and audio later in the on-demand because we've recorded the whole show. So you'll get to see the entire interview and its entire experience. But we're still in the air live and don't know why we're crashing computers, but we are. And we like to test technology here and then test my patience. Got questions for us? Tweet us at D3Hoopsville, hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. We're not streaming on Facebook because that one had a glitch tonight too, but we are on YouTube. Travis asked us a question about redshirting if it disproportionately favored state schools with the cost of private school tuition. I'm imagining there's more incentive if fifth year state school where it's cheaper. Maybe, but let's remember one thing that the privates don't like to talk about, but the states will tell you about. because the privates will tell you how the states are cheaper, but the states will tell you how the privates like to discount things. I have a former colleague whose son plays football, being recruited by Division III, and I know how much he's getting discounted off the face value. It's comparable. So if you can continue that on, one would argue it helps everybody. I think it depends on the institution. There are certainly some institutions the red shirt doesn't help, and there's certainly institutions the red shirt helps, and that's why I'm totally against it in the general, because it's not a Division III thing in my opinion. Let's continue on, talk women's basketball, one team that I've been keeping an eye on, even if maybe we're not used to what's going on, only because, maybe the record doesn't jump out at you. It's a new head coach, and I'm kind of curious how they're doing. A little bit of a surprise when Marymount had a women's coach job open up, their former head coach deciding to step down. Certainly caught me by surprise. The next one in line of surprises was, who are they going to hire? You just don't know what the answer is going to be. They took out of the Centennial Conference from Ursinus College, Margaret White. So joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville Hotline is the aforementioned head coach who took over the Marymount Saints. And Coach, you're not too far. You skipped right over Maryland, but you're not too far from where you were at Ursinus. First and foremost, congratulations on the job, a storied program. You got to be thrilled the opportunity even presented itself.
Yeah. Hey, Dave, thanks for having me. Yeah, I was kind of just as surprised as you were when Coach Rogers decided to step down. Shortly after then, actually, she and I had an initial conversation about my interest and being from the Northern Virginia area, really having spent a lot of time as a kid on the Marymount campus. It was really a unique opportunity for me to come back. So it's definitely an honor, personally and professionally, to be the next in line after Coach Finney and then Coach Rogers. So it's means a lot for sure.
I'll have to admit, I remember sitting there going, I'm like, well, that's an interesting pick. I wonder why. And I started to try and dive into it and understand it better, and wasn't really positive I had it right. And then someone said, well, she basically grew up on the campus. Her mother basically, was at that campus in some capacity or another for a long period of time. I went, oh, then this makes total sense. It's not your prototypical return to an alma mater or return somewhere, but in some way you're returning home.
Exactly. Yeah. I told the team in kind of the interview process that I'm not an alum, but I feel like I'm an adopted alum. I actually, yes, my mother worked there for about 25 years or so. Wow. So I was a toddler running around there with my sisters, and they actually had a full day daycare back in the day. So I'm a Marymount alum because I graduated from daycare. So
very nice.
Yeah. So I ran around campus for a long time as a kid.
Oh, that works out. It works out real nice. What did you expect of the season coming in? Because, listen, we're used to a program that wins 20 games a season most of the time, not always in its history, but most of the time. It's a tough, it certainly was in the CAC, one of the tougher teams to try and face. You're off to a 9-6 start, but it's after COVID. It's after a coaching change. You name a list of things that are different than before you got there. Is this the season you expected, or are you guys maybe trying to find your way still?
Right. I think that's just it. Like a lot of teams, I think COVID changed a lot. This team last year had 6 or so games under pretty limited circumstances. Inherited a very young roster. 11 out of our 13 players are freshmen and sophomores. And like most programs, those sophomores only experienced a limited COVID year.
Yeah.
So I think we all knew we had the talent on the roster. It was just going to be about the experience and how quickly we came together. So I think what you've seen in the record thus far is that lack of experience early with an, as usual, per Marymount style, a challenging out of conference schedule. Yeah. That I think revealed some flaws early on, but also helped us build some strengths. And we gained a lot of momentum from those. And now building into the conference season, I think we're gaining a lot of experience. We're building on that. And now we're starting to gain the confidence with it. So I think it was a matter of time. And then we'll see kind of how the rest of the season progresses. But we're excited to see what we look like a month from now, because we feel like every game we've gotten better. Younger players have gotten experience. Different people have stepped up in different situations. So that's exciting when you can win a couple different ways at this point.
Looking at the schedule again, you won 3 of the first 4 to start. Then you hit that slide where you lost 5 of 7. Those losses in total coming to Hopkins, Catholic, Shenandoah, Salisbury, Mary Washington, Christopher Newport. Yeah, doesn't look bad, though. You know, you see some losses that are odd. I mean, Christopher Newport, Marymount in the past would not have resulted in the score it resulted in this year. I'm sure you were thrilled to see Coach Broderick's defense up close and personal when you couldn't avoid it. But then since then, you've gotten into conference play, which in the reality of things is the most important thing to be watching. You're off to a 4-0 start with wins over Marywood, Centenary, Cabrini, and Gwinnett Mercy. How much is this telling the team, listen, yeah, took our lumps. But right now, the only thing we need to really focus on is the task at hand in conference. Let's get it done here.
That's exactly it. I mean, that's what we said. I think, you know, you always want to win those non-conference games, but we know that we took a lot from those, even the ones we lost. And we've seen ourselves now in different situations, put that experience to the test and get better from it. So exactly right. I mean, the only thing that guarantees you a trip to the NCAA tournament is winning the conference. And so that's all that we're focused on at this point.
Looking at this team in general, you're led by a sophomore, really, which is interesting, in Tara Dombo. 11 points a game and 10.5 points from a junior, and Samantha Shackelford. Chandler Edelman, basically in double figures as well at nearly 10 points a game. She's a sophomore, so you're leaning a little bit on underclassmen after losing some of the upperclassmen experience you were expecting.
Yeah. And, you know, that's kind of where I think the early part of the season came into play, just people who hadn't been on the floor consistently for long periods of time or in big moments. So now they have been. And so I feel like we've made a huge jump because we're a lot more seasoned just in the span of a couple months.
How hard is it as a coach who's new coming in to A, get used to the talent that's already there that in this case Coach Rogers had set up, and B, how hard is it for the players to adapt to a coach who doesn't have the same style necessarily, isn't going to have the same practice mentality, but at the same time, not going to run the same stuff? How hard is that to adjust to, even at a program that is so successful like Marymount?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always going to be challenging no matter what the school or program is, regardless of the history. I also arrived here in September, so the timing was crunched. You know, I'm fortunate in this position because Coach Rogers has been a friend of mine and a mentor of mine. April Preller is an assistant coach who was here for a couple of years, who's still here. So we had a lot of support around us and around me to really do my research and figure out, you know, if things worked in the past, I wasn't going to erase them just for the sake of change. We made sure that we kept things that were working and built them in as well as we could, and blending it with my philosophy on things and trying to merge the two so that our players could be the most comfortable they could be with the change. And I think that's helped. And as we've kind of grown, we've been able to then kind of develop our own unique personality. But I think it helped at the start to make sure that we were all on the same page.
Yeah, certainly. And again, it's going to take some time. As much as you're friends with Coach Rogers and you guys might be similar, there's going to be differences. And so sometimes recruiting is going to be a little bit different. But in the general sense, you went from a similar school in Ursinus and Marymount. They're both high-end liberal arts colleges. Though we're in the Centennial, where it was a little bit of a beat 'em up at the top. You knew you were going to take your lumps, or at least have to dish them out yourself against the likes of your alma mater in Gettysburg and Johns Hopkins and all that. You're in a very different conference now with the likes of Gwinnett Mercy under Keith Mondello and others. How has the adjustment been to what is a very different group of schools and very different group of coaches?
Yeah, it is different. It's geographically, it's different being everyone's furthest trip and the southernmost point. Keith made fun of me yesterday when we got to his game like 3 hours early because I was worried about the traffic on either end and totally mistimed it. Better to be early than late, though, I guess. Yep. But no, I mean, I luckily I had some familiarity with the Philadelphia region schools because those were teams that we would see in non-conference. But it's been fun learning a new conference. I mean, the Centennial is based on tradition and it's been the same teams for a long time. And those rivalries are based on decades. And what's kind of fun with the Atlantic East is that we're building those rivalries. That's happening now. And I think that's fun to have a chance to kind of create something new.
You left her sinus, as we mentioned. Bobby Morgan comes in and takes over the program after a slight hiatus of retiring from college basketball after leaving Haverford and going to a local school, and then deciding, as she put it to me, enough of folding towels. Your thoughts on Bobby taking over your program?
I was pumped.
Yeah.
I think when you leave a program, when I decided to come to Marymount, I hadn't been looking to leave Ursinus. I loved my time there, and it was difficult to choose to leave. And the biggest thing is you worry about your players. And especially, like I said, given the timing, it was a tough time to leave a group. And my concern was those players. And then when Bobby came along, I took a big sigh of relief, because knowing Bobby and respecting her so much, I knew that our players there were going to be in great hands. So it really was a nice kind of fit all the way around.
She secretly just wanted to take over your program and was waiting quietly for you to do so. Roundabout way to get at, but it worked, right? Hey, curious, you're slowly moving south. You grew up in Virginia, as you said. You went to Gettysburg for college, and so you progressively moved north. You're at Elmira and Vassar and other time up in New York, and then you came down to Ursinus, and now you're down to. Are you heading further south, or is this just kind of a yo-yo for you?
No, this is it. Yeah, I had my time in the cold, and now when people complain about the cold here, I remember what Cleveland and upstate New York was like. So I'm good here.
You sure? I mean,
yeah.
Snow and winter has been interesting down there so far.
True. The school cancellations happen quickly down here.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. You said the word snow. We're closed. Never mind. Hey, appreciate you coming on the show. I'll miss not seeing you as much as I used to up here in the Mid-Atlantic region, but I'll know I'll bump into you from time to time. But thanks for coming on the show and talking about the program. As always, you give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share? Those tuned in.
Just as always, thank you for, promoting Division III basketball, especially on the women's side. It's great that we know that in the Division III side of things, the women's side gets just as much as respect as the men's side. So we appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely. It's some good basketball there too. And I appreciate it nonetheless. Hey, thanks for the time. Enjoy your outside DC area, and we'll look forward to talking to you down the road.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Margaret White joining us from Marymount. Team has ahead of them Newman and Immaculata coming up in the next two games. On the road at Newman, at home against Immaculata. On the road against Centenary, at home against Marywood as they play out AEC play. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the women's top 25 with two new panelists in our double take. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with more after this.
My name is Marcus Walker. I was All-State, won a state championship, a high school All-American, and played college and pro ball. I played because I love the game. I grind to be the best. I sweat because I put in work. I'm strong because I believe. When I want to bring it before game time, I come to the house that college basketball built, the CBE. No matter your skill, take it to another level. Elevate your game right here at the College Basketball Experience at Sprint Center.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
In any way that we can.
To get a friend home safe.
To never blame the victim.
It's on us.
To stand up.
To make our community safe for all.
It's on us.
It's on us to look out for each other at parties.
It's on us.
To be more than just a bystander.
To step up and say something.
It's on us, all of us.
To stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Football has taught me a lot throughout my life. It's definitely had a huge imprint on who I am as a person. Competing at a Division III level created that opportunity for me to go to college. Not only was I the first one in my family to graduate college, but I was really the first one to even go. Being the first one, I'm breaking that cycle, and now that I've graduated, I'm not sure what's the next step, but I know I have a lot of doors open. And a lot of those are open because I played football and ran track here at Otterbein.
There are over 480,000 college athletes. Only 2% would go pro. That means over 470,000 will not get a shoe contract. No autographs. No private jets. No fan clubs. No Hall of Fame inductions. Instead, Instead, they will walk away with something much more valuable.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. If you got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Andy says we have a question. Do we have a question? What? What? Huh? Huh? Don't see it. I don't see it. He's claiming there's a question, but I don't see it, folks. On my main account. Oh, you're right. There it is. Oh, it's a guy coming up. Oh, Scott's got a question for me. We'll get to that in just a second. He's being sneaky. You can tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can email us, hoopsville@d3sports.com. You can also, let's see, what else we got? Well, you can join us on YouTube tonight. We're simulcasting there at D3 or youtube.com/Hoopsville. Speaking of which, let me just double check it. We're not on Facebook due to some glitch. Don't know what it is, but whatever. It's a glitch. It's got to be Hoopsville, right, everybody? So talking women's basketball, we got the top 25 double take going last week. I was thrilled about that. And we've got it going yet again this week. But with new panelists. We gave Gordon the night off, just out of the kindness of our hearts. And we decided to bring in two new guys. So join us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline.
True.
Killed my audio, apparently. There we go. Brendan, let's try that again. Brendan Gulick and Scott Pederson joining us. Brendan Gulick and I go way back to our Transylvania days. It really just because we were there on one weekend during a winter storm and a tornadoes. But we've been kind of found each other. You might recognize Brendan because he and I have done some NCAA bracket shows. He's done some more than I have, but we've been on the same crew every once in a while.
Having fun.
Yeah, and Scott Pederson joining us. You might know him from the D3 boards. Was it Scotty Dog? I always forget it. Yeah.
It is.
I got it right. Speaking of you, sir, before we get this going, you decided to throw a question at me. You said, would you think a school like Calvin transitioning from college to university could really capitalize pulling in grad transfers who can get a graduate degree while playing a year of college sports? Absolutely. Oh, no, absolutely. Right now, with the way the waiver thing's working, and really the way that some of the rules have changed that allow transferring to be a little bit easier as a graduate student. Absolutely, a school that decides to add graduate programs is going to have a little bit of an advantage. I've been talking to a couple of coaches who are at schools who don't have graduate programs, and they're like, yeah, I can't really hold on to the players because they're moving on. We don't have a graduate program to keep them around here. They don't hate it. It's just that's the reality. But yes, if Calvin's deciding to go, hey, we're going to add a bunch of graduate programs and we can get some players in for once a year, sure. I think the disadvantage may be being the type of institution they are, and that's not a knock on them. You're just going to have to find the right person that comes in. Nice question, sir. Andy spotted it. Well done to my son, too. Gentlemen, you're in here to join us for the top 25 double take. I appreciate it. You know, I explained to you guys, there's a debatable team, there's a deep dive team, and there's I always want to say a word I don't want to say. There's always a lofty team. There's another word we use, D, and I always forget it, even though I write it down.
Dubious.
Thank you, dubious. I want to use another word that became a political hot button word, and I don't know why it's stuck in my head. So we'll start with either dubious or deep dive. Do either of you want to try and start off first?
Scott, the floor is yours, buddy.
Scott, the floor is yours, and you get to pick the category.
All right, I'm going to go with deep dive, and my selected team is Wisconsin Lutheran. They are currently 21st in the poll. I think they're interesting because they are undefeated with not a strong strength of schedule, and their best wins are early. And they were all narrow versus Washington U, neutral court over Millikan, and at Chicago. And since then, probably their best looking win is a home win over St. Norbert. And then looking in their stat edges, nothing really stood out to me. They're a pretty low scoring team for a highly ranked team playing a weak strength of schedule. They don't have a large rebounding edge. They do play great defense. Their opponents are shooting 25% from the floor, which I think is pretty far below average. They're just an interesting case. I think these undefeated, weak strength of schedule teams are interesting. And I'm also starting, now that we're further into January, you can kind of start discounting those November and December wins in favor of January wins or losses.
I'm curious real quick, how much do you discount them? Because there's got to be some stock in some of those games. You don't want to completely remove them from the conversation, I assume.
No, but just a discount. Definitely not writing off the win. But some teams, I can't remember which one it was, their most impressive win was their first game of the season in like late October. And it's like, if they've got some losses since then, I'm probably putting more stock in those.
Interesting that you say a discount. We've been using that word a lot tonight. I'm curious if it's a discount double check. Just trying to get some advertising on the show here. All right. I see your Wisconsin Lutheran. That's a good choice. Brendan, any thoughts on that before we get your team?
No, I think Wisconsin Lutheran's a good team, and I had them ranked inside my top 25 barely the last couple of weeks. I like them. I'm not sold on them for a lot of the same reasons. I want to see better wins from them more recently. Not taking away from the fact that they haven't lost yet, but I don't even think they're close to being the best team in their own state. So let's see how that goes.
Fair. I like it. All right. What's your pick?
We'll go deep dive.
Well, hold on. We got to stay with the topic. So you got to go with.
Yeah, we just.
Oh, right. No, I'm sorry. Right. Deep dive. My apologies.
That's okay. I think a lot of folks that have followed me know I'm an OAC guy. I'm a John Carroll grad, and I do a lot of work at BW.
Try not to hold that against you.
Yeah, that's right. There's another team in the OAC that I don't think is getting quite enough attention. Now, look, they are nationally ranked. I think they were 16th this week. That's the Marietta Pioneers. I'm really impressed with what I saw from Marietta, especially the last couple of weeks. They've won 9 in a row. I happened to broadcast the game they lost, so I saw them when they were at their worst. And I thought they were extremely competitive, even though that final score didn't look great. A win over John Carroll is proving to be a really, really good win. I think their non-conference strength of schedule looks pretty solid. They beat LaRoche, W&J, St. Vincent, and Ohio Wesleyan, who are all over 500. Ohio Northern, I think, is having a pretty good season that not a lot of people are talking about. And Marietta fairly handily beat Ohio Northern. I think it was an 8-point win, but a convincing win for them. Again, those are good early season wins, but I like the way they responded from what felt like a bad loss because the final score wasn't close. And they have gotten really hot, including that win over John Carroll. I'd like to see what they're going to do here in the next couple of weeks because they're playing Ohio Northern, they're playing BW, and then they'll play Carroll again on February 5th. But I like Cole Vivian's team. They've got enough senior leadership that I think they could make a run. I'm a little concerned if I'm an OAC fan of getting multiple teams in the tournament because in years where that has happened, for whatever reason, it hasn't reflected great in terms of the results.
Yeah.
I think it's a multi-bid league, but I don't know if multiple teams are going to actually get bids. We'll have to see. But Marietta absolutely deserves to be in that conversation.
No, I definitely think Marietta is a good team. I think they're in about the right spot on the poll, but I can see the argument that maybe they need to be higher. We'll see how it plays out with the voters next poll for sure. All right, so we did deep dive. Let's do the other one. Brendan, we'll start with you since you just went. We'll let Steve see if he loses his pick.
I'm gonna go for. We're doing dubious, right?
Yep, dubious.
Okay. I'm gonna go with the Wisconsin Oshkosh. Did I steal yours, Scott?
Nope.
All right.
All right. All right.
They're okay. I'm just not totally sold on them this year.
Oshkosh at 23, just for the record.
Yeah. They're 12-3 on the season. I don't think they've beaten very many good teams. your record is what it is. You can't control that. I understand it. But I think Wisconsin Oshkosh is getting a little too much love. They lost to Eau Claire. I thought that was pretty handily. I know they played Whitewater tight. Are they capable of playing well? I think so. But I don't know. When I put rankings together, I don't do it based on capability as much as what have you shown me. And that's kind of where I fall off with Oshkosh. So I have not had them ranked. Again, I'm not bashing them. They're not a bad team. I'm just not running around with a Titan flag saying this is a team that, everybody needs to be talking about right now.
Just for the record, Whitewater is ranked ahead of them, obviously. Eau Claire is not even getting votes and technically having a better
They
season.
should be. I think Eau Claire should be. I like Eau Claire.
Scott, any thoughts on his pick at Oshkosh there?
So I have a lot of the similar thoughts, but I think they're pretty fairly ranked for what they've shown, right? They've lost some really close games to some solid teams. They've got some solid wins on the resume. I definitely agree with what does your resume say, but I think they've showed enough upside that I think some top 25 recognition is warranted. And at 23rd, it shows that the voters are definitely mixed.
I know you're saying you discount stuff in November, but they do have a loss to Bethany Lutheran, who's 9-6 on the season. Is that a top 25 type loss? I think would be an interesting question. Granted, as you said earlier, discounting a little bit of the earlier part of the season now, so maybe that just doesn't come in as heavily into play. The Whitewater loss might, I could see that both ways. Interesting pick. It gets us talking. I like it. Talking.
A close overtime loss against Whitewater, I think, can hold a lot of stock, even a loss. Because if you look at what Trine did against Hope, they played them tough for the majority of the game, and to me, that's more impressive than the bulk of wins that teams have.
Brad Fisher's on the line.
And maybe it's subconscious bias. I think Trine is better than their current ranking in the poll. Every time I watch Trine film, I'm like blown away. They are really, really good. They're not Hope good, but they are very capable of making a Final Four push if they can get bracketed appropriately.
Interesting. Trine, 13-2 now. Obviously, you lost to Hope, then they lost to Eau Claire. So obviously, solid losses. Yeah, no, I think Trine's good too, but I like this. This is good stuff. All right, Scott, who's your pick here?
So my dubious actually ended up not too dubious because once I crunched the data, I think they're actually fairly ranked, and that's New York University at 9th.
Okay, I like your pick though.
Because I think the resume I don't think stands out. They just haven't played the quality of teams that I think warrants their ranking.
Sure.
They've got the blowouts against Case Western and Carnegie Mellon, and then a very early season win against Vassar, and that's probably it. Now, if you dig into their stats, they're great. Just massive margin of victory, great shooting, huge rebounding advantage. But the nice thing is we will absolutely know who they are. Their next four, they go 4 road games against WashU, Chicago, Rochester, and Emory, none of which are elite, but like all of which are good tests. Yeah. And I think 4-0 would be terribly impressive. And at 2, if they go 2-2, I don't know how far I'd really be dropping them, maybe a couple spots.
I think it's interesting that NYU is where they are in the poll. And if you look at how the votes were scattered among the teams above them, it really feels like there's not a whole lot of dissent right now between essentially 1 through, I guess, 6. Amherst and Whitman, I guess, they're only 4 points apart. Maybe that's a bit of a coin flip. But there's a reasonable drop off to NYU. And then there's another sizable drop off to where Tufts and BW and John Carroll are all ranked. So I think NYU is giving the impression to voters, Scott, that because their stats have been so strong and because they play in a league that is traditionally very, very good, they must be a good team. But I don't think anybody, for the same reason that that you just laid out, I don't think anybody's ready to push them, too high, top 5 type area, despite not losing yet.
If I was voting, go ahead, Scott.
If they go 4-0 against those 4 road games, though, I think they could jump.
Yeah, that's a different convo. Absolutely. If I was a top 25 voter, I'd be waiting for the UAA play. I'd be looking at the fact that they have a win against only one team with a significant record. The interesting thing is that win against Brooklyn, who's 10-2, is a dominating win, 97-53. But if you dive into Brooklyn's schedule, it ain't all that in a bag of chips. So it may be a little bit of smoke and mirrors. Interesting enough, we should have NYU's women's basketball coach Meg Barber on our next show. We already have it marked down. As we accidentally invited for tonight, but it's a long story. But no, NYU's certainly on my radar. If I picked a dubious, that would have been mine. Absolutely. But I do like how you said you started diving into it. Well, maybe not. And trust me, happens to all of us. Debatable. You guys got together. You both kind of agreed on one of them, so I'll throw it at you. You both wanted it to kind of debate Carroll, who's not in the top 25. Or are you talking about John Carroll, right, guys?
No. Carroll, Wisconsin.
Carroll. Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure. Interesting. You wanted to debate Carroll, who's not really getting a lot of love. I'll give it to Scott since you just kind of wrapped up, so we'll let you kind of have the first salvo here on why you wanted Carroll on the table.
Right. So Carroll did not get any votes for the top 25 in the latest poll. They've got an early season road win against St. Norbert. Then they lost 3 in a row in December against pretty good teams, although all were double-digit losses. So at Illinois Wesleyan, at Wheaton, and versus Millikan. So that doesn't look good. That kind of puts them behind the 8 ball. But in their last 3, which I am putting more weight on, they beat Whitewater, almost at double digits.
Yeah.
Went to overtime against Carthage, beat them. They beat North Park by 56, but then I dug into it, and North Park was missing their leading scorers 1, 3, 4, and 5. So I think you can kind of, but that's not as impressive as it looked initially. I was like a decent North Park team plus 56, but and then I think they're plus 19 in scoring average. They shoot great from the floor, okay on the boards. And maybe this is a little bit sneaking into the dubious category, but I don't know that their resume is that different from East Texas Baptist, who is getting top 25 love.
Interesting.
I tend to agree. There's 423 teams that play D3 women's hoops. So they are in the top quartile in scoring offense, scoring defense, scoring margin, field goal percentage, free throw percentage, rebounding margin, turnover margin. I mean, field goal defense, they do all the things that you look for in good teams. Well, they do that well. And to me, look, teams that are pretty athletic find ways to score the ball. I look for, after having seen a number of different teams make the Final Four push, obviously the last 2 years it's been canceled, but I look for teams that play really, really good defense. And I didn't vote for Carroll, but I certainly considered them and will going forward. They look like the kind of team that is putting together the right ingredients for a good run, or maybe we see them in March.
They got 3 of their next games are at home, 4 of their next 5. Starting off with Illinois Wesleyan, and then Augustana Wheaton. Then they're on the road against Augustana before coming home against North Central. Then they got that rematch with Millikan. So they've already got a rematch with Wheaton coming up, and they've got the rematch with Millikan coming up in February. Those are 2 of the teams that they lost in that 3-game stretch. Of course, that 3-game stretch
Illinois Wesleyan too
also included Illinois Wesleyan, who they get to go after immediately. So it's interesting. The 3-game stretch all came against conference, and sure, that threw a lot of flags for a lot of people, but they get their revenge here coming up, and that's a key. The only one that won't be at home will be Millikan. Millikan will be on the road.
I kind of like their balance. They don't seem to have an elite, show-stopping scorer. Katie Roner's at 12 points a game. Let's see, 9, 8, 8, 6, 6, 6. I mean, it really feels like they've got lots of different options offensively. Allison Thompson, 36 block shots. She's one of the better shot blockers in the country. I don't know. I tend to agree with you, Scott. I know you kind of brought that one to my attention in our email thread, but that's a team that I think deserves some real credibility.
I don't think they should have been getting a look before these last 3 wins, but after these last 3 wins, they have my attention. And especially if they can beat Illinois Wesleyan, I think that definitely warrants some top 25 votes.
Yep.
I love it. Great idea. Hey, I got a little bit extra time, so I got to get an opportunity here because we don't get crowds kind of getting introduced to you all. So we figure we'll introduce you a little bit more. Scott, I love the audio setup. It sounds better than what we've been sounding better like recently, so I'm a little bit perturbed. But nonetheless, can you give everybody a sense of what your background is and stuff and why you love D3 so much?
Well, I was born and raised in Seattle, but I decided to go to school far away from home, and I went to Hope. And I was at Hope 05 through 09 and went to every men's tournament game except our consolation game in the Final Four, and made the road trip to the women's national title and was kind of hooked.
Very nice. What's the audio setup? What do you do normally?
So I mean, I'm a remote developer from home, but I also host a podcast myself.
Very
so
cool.
I've slowly outfitted the gear over the years.
You're welcome to pimp the show if you want, sir. I'm not afraid of it.
No, it's a niche youth competition podcast that I'm sure no one would want to listen to. So,
well, clearly you must have some listeners. So
we do. They're all competitors.
There you go. Youth competitive. Now I'm curious. I'll have to ask him off air. Brendan, 2 thoughts, maybe 3. First off, you're lucky to be on the show, considering how much D1 pimp is behind you. We don't like D1 around here, sir, and usually D1's dead to me, and you've been borderline dead, except you still call stuff for Baldwin Wallace, so you're okay with me. Someone did point out that it's all about the Spartans because you've called stuff for Case Western. We had Todd on the show, and Margaret White has connections as well. Oh, yeah. So it's a bit of a Spartan show. It's the SI stuff that's saving you right now, though it may not save you a ton. Please explain the backdrop to everybody who's sitting there going, what is going on with that? How did Dave get an SI guy?
I'm the publisher for Buckeyes Now, which is the Ohio State channel on Sports Illustrated. So,
right now, Scott is logging
SI
on.
And Ohio State. And sorry, Scott, are you a Michigan fan? I mean, I know you said you went to Hope.
No, I just said he's from Michigan.
No, I'm from Seattle, so University of Washington fan.
Oh, there you
go. Go win the Apple Cup. I don't know what to say. No, I do a lot of different things. I'm a John Carroll grad. I have worked in the OAC for a long time. I follow D3 athletics really closely. I've done, I think, 25 national championship events, many of which have been D3. I've done
Stolen
the
from me.
Done D3 women's and men's basketball Final Four a couple times, and certainly love and admire and appreciate Division III athletics. I don't have a favorite between covering Ohio State or covering last night's game between John Carroll and BW. I loved it. I mean, I love celebrating student athletes who are pouring their time and efforts into what they're doing. And I'm glad that you've got an outlet like this, Dave, to give them coverage.
Thank you. The proper answer is you love the Division III more than Division I, but we'll let it slide for now. By the way, Brennan and I have been on the call together for basketball. That was fun. Sure. Dating back to our Transylvania days when we got a game off our belts at Transylvania. We also have an interesting tie.
We did the last men's Final Four in Fort Wayne the last time they actually had a tournament.
That's right. It was, and maybe that'll be how it goes again because Lincoln Riley likes to pull rank on us. And he decides what one he wants to go to. That's really in case Lincoln's listening to the show. Not really holding my breath. But Brendan also shared me a little video. Brendan's seen me behind the scenes, which nobody ever gets to see in my other job during the quote unquote off season. He actually saw me at work, which is really weird, sir. Someday I'm finding out the whole story. But we also got to spend a little extra time Memorial Day weekend down in Salem, Virginia. Nothing wrong with that, right?
Yeah, we did. I had a great time. Yep. That was awesome.
Hey, guys, thanks for the time. Really appreciate it. We'll get you into the rotation. I'm going to need somebody next week. One of you two's on board with Gordon. I'm going to figure it out. Oh, it's probably Scott because Brendan's too busy. We can only get him so many times. But, hey, guys, really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Take care of yourselves, and we'll look forward to talking to you down the road.
Happy to do it. See you soon.
See you later.
See you guys.
See you later.
Again, those guys are awesome. Thanks for joining. Great picks, by the way. Really get you thinking. I loved it. Take a break. When we come back, we'll jump back into the men's basketball. Oswego State men's basketball coach Jason Leone joins us. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com from the WBCA NABC studios. Once again, I want to thank our partners at Blue Frame Technology for their help with all of this. It certainly is a lot easier to do it, as it were, but thank you so much to them. Again, back with more after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com. We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com. We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
Welcome back to Hoopsville. The next school is spelled Oswego. Just because I had to say it in the off air. You got questions for us, tweet us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Email us, hoopsville at D3sports.com. We're simulcasting on YouTube, youtube.com/Hoopsville. If you happen to be listening there, we'll try and answer your questions if you fire them there as well. Lots to talk about. And one of the teams I've been debating about getting on the show, mainly because the coach keeps bugging me, mainly because I think he wants props with his wife, is Oswego. I've debated whether I can get him on the show and talk to him and see if, but I wanted to see. And as you've heard on the top 25 dubious, I haven't been sure about whether I wanted to get Oswego into the top 25. Why? Because there's this ABC thing. Nazareth, RPI, and Oswego have all beaten each other. And it makes it very complicated. I can't get all 3 of them into the show as a result. But it doesn't mean they aren't good enough. It just means I don't have enough room. So how do I figure that out? Well, I have him on the show and I have a conversation with him. That's how I figure it out. Joining us on the Blue Frame Technologies Hoopsville Hotline, the head coach of the Oswego State Lakers, sorry. Out of the Sunyac, it's Jason Leone, friend of the show. Sir, how are you? I'm not surprised you're allowed to step away and get some time for this show. It is a fan favorite of the family, is it not?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. We tried to meet up with you down in Baltimore. We were down in with my in-laws down their Christmas present was to see the Ravens and Packers game. My in-laws and my wife are big Packers fans, so we were down there. We tried to meet up with you, but typical of you, you're very busy. A lot of people are tugging at your time, so
yeah, that was the case.
Couldn't make it work, but no harm, no foul.
If we knew we weren't going to end up going to Maine for Christmas, I think we would have gone to the game. But we were trying to stay, a little close to home due to family obligations.
The 2 most famous people in Baltimore are you and Coach Leffler from Hopkins.
Interesting enough, Coach and I were talking earlier today.
Yeah, he's the man.
He is the man.
He's a big part of our success this year. We can get into why.
Oh, we will in a second. I'm curious, what section were you in? Because you didn't answer my question when I asked.
Oh, I didn't?
Yeah, no.
I don't know what section, but we were in the lower bowl, so we had good seats. We were in the end zone. Yeah, it was good. So
lower
it was a
bowl,
Christmas present.
I can't afford those
that was
seats.
Good. No, it was good. It was a lot of fun. Well, we bought them in July, so
that's helpful.
We were lucky. The game got flexed to a 4:00 game, so that was a lot of fun too. And fans were riled up. It was actually my first NFL game in a long time.
Yeah, interesting. You drove all the way down to Baltimore to see a game when Buffalo is so much closer.
It's actually not as far as you think from Syracuse. It's only 4 hours.
4 hours from Syracuse down to here?
Yeah.
Listen, I've driven that many a time. I'll give you 5.
I'm a New Yorker. I might drive a little faster.
Oh, so do I, but we'll digress. Anyway, you guys are 14-1, off to a great start. One loss coming to Nazareth, as I mentioned, who lost to RPI, who you beat. Because it's circular. You and I talk, like I said with Todd McGuinness, we talk in the off season. I pick your brain about how things are going. You felt good about this season, but I don't get the sense you thought 14-1 and 8-0 in conference play right now were where you'd be sitting. You thought maybe you'd take a few more lumps, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. This has definitely been a pleasant surprise. And, especially, everybody's dealt with their own personal stories on COVID, and we certainly have had ours, but we didn't have the ability to work with our guys at all last year. So, that goes into it. I know a lot of schools are in the same boat, and, we had, a younger nucleus coming back, but younger guys that had played a lot 2 years ago. And then we were fortunate with some recruits that we thought would be good. We didn't know they'd be good this soon. And here we are,
Well, that kind of ties in a little bit of talking about recruits, but also about how you guys are successful and why you're giving Hopkins credit. Let's just get it out of the way. Why is Josh Leffler the real coach of the year in the Sunyac right now?
Well, all of us coaches probably had a lot of time on our hands over last year, and we really did some examination into some of our schematic stuff, especially on the defensive end. So, I had an opportunity during the offseason to go down and meet with Josh and pick his brain about some stuff that I was thinking about doing defensively, and kind of wanted some, I wanted to pick somebody's brain that had kind of done some of the things that we were thinking about doing. And our scheme isn't exactly the same as theirs, but we've added some things that I think they've been successful with, and it's really helped us out on that end of the floor. But the scheme is one thing, but also the personnel has really fit what we've been trying to do as well. So the players certainly deserve some credit as well. But Josh was very giving of his time, and it was awesome to go down and meet with him and kind of implore some of those ideas into some things that translated more with our personnel.
Interesting. You were down here another time I'm unaware of, but okay, we're going to let that slide. No, that's what I find. I find it interesting that coaches share so much at conventions. They share so much off season. They share so much all the time. And this is going to be an off the wall question to you. Then why in the world do we have so much gamesmanship when it comes to video streams that aren't available after the fact because no one wants to be scouted, or uniforms that are difficult to see because no one wants to be scouted? You're all sharing this information. Like, why in the world are in-season games taking place then?
Well, I can't speak about all that stuff. I mean, I'm not sure everybody has these gamesmanship things that you're talking about. And
not everybody, but enough.
I also talked with Josh Merkel quite a bit down at Randolph-Macon a lot last year. He's a hardcore pack line guy, and Josh's scheme is a little bit different than that, but those two guys have been very helpful. I don't know. I think I would like to think most coaches are very giving and sharing of their time, and maybe I was just fortunate with those two guys. I don't know, but I've always been, the guys that I've known and for over the years and all that stuff, I've always known coaches to be pretty giving of information and things like that.
You got this Sunyac battle. You're 8-0 in conference play, which is great, but you probably don't know who you're playing next. The Sunyac has been trying to mess around with the schedules a bit to try and get everybody their games in where games have been lost. We'll get to the rest of the season, but the Sunyac's the now. It technically says you're playing Cortland coming up this weekend, along with Geneseo next week, and then Oneonta. Who knows? Wait 24 hours.
Yeah.
How hard has it been? Because the Sunyac's been making a lot of changes to try and make this all work for everybody.
Yeah, it's we're back on schedule, but there's been a couple of things, just with COVID protocols and testing and those type of things. I'm sure most leagues are going through these things, but our league's been great. Our commissioner, our athletic directors, they've, at least from, I'm not privy to every piece of information, but we've been very committed to getting these games in. And I think the coaches, I don't want to speak for other leagues, but I think all of us are really happy to just be playing. And I think, things that have gone out the window are things like days of rest and prep time and all that stuff. I think all the coaches and administrators seem on the outside to be in agreement. Like, we're going to have to give up some of the things that maybe on a normal year would be important to us just to get these games in. And everybody's really been working really hard and diligently to do that. And, our league and our administrators have been no different. So it's one of those things where, every day I'm waiting in my inbox to get something with a new protocol or, new things that we've got to do with testing or, like in our state, things have been very fluid. So, you just roll with those punches and again, getting the games in is the most important thing. And, that's going to require patience and flexibility from everybody. And I think that's gone very well in our league to this. I'm losing you here, Dave. Are you there? Oh. I lost my audio there. You there?
Oh, and it doesn't help that I hit the mute button, sir.
I was going to say, I thought that because I'm severely technologically challenged. My athletic director and all the people around me would tell you that, but that was
me.
I was worried it was me.
No, that was me. My son. We got the wrong graphic up here. Apologize. Let me fix that here in a second. My son asked me a question. I hit the mute button to be fair, and proceeded to then just mute myself from the whole show because we like to make things difficult. Yeah. Anyway, so my question was, what's interesting with the Sunyac, you're playing and they're trying to jump through hoops to get everything played. Last year is, I think, the first, if not one of the first conferences that shut everything down and said, we're not playing. We're not going to have a season. And that applies to everybody. It was a conference wide. It wasn't like a conference saying, hey, we're not going to have a conference schedule, but everybody else can do what they want. So you're having a very interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah. I mean, it was, like all these things that you're at the mercy of what the governor and the chancellor decides to do. And I mean, nothing came as a surprise last year. I think you start to see dominoes start to fall with other leagues. And then, we were preparing for the worst the whole time. The worst in terms of, us not playing. And, the thing you have to do in a position of leadership, this, Dave, is like your next thing as a coach is, okay, how are we going to manage the things with the players, who maybe at a younger age aren't in tune with, why we're doing things. And you want to keep everybody grounded emotionally. And that was really my whole focus. I'm sure a lot of coaches too last year was, there's a bigger picture that was going on in our world at that point. And you try to keep everybody on board and make them understand, okay, we've got to roll with this and kind of not react emotionally. And luckily, we had a lot of success with just, with our guys. Just they really did a great job of just staying grounded through this whole thing instead of, as I mentioned before, things are changing exponentially every single week. And, to go on an emotional roller coaster probably wasn't the best way to handle things. So, it was what it was, and we kept trying to look to the future and say, okay, eventually we're going to get through this. And that's what has made this year all the more special, to be quite frank with you. I went in with a new perspective this year that regardless of what happened, I was just going to really, really enjoy just being back doing some of the things that I really enjoy doing. And I think having that perspective has really helped our team and myself, really understand what's important about playing the sport that we love,
Talk about the team. Julian Crittenden leading the way, 12.5 points a game, pulling down 2.5 rebounds, certainly a number of assists, but shoots really well from the floor at 47%, 32% from deep. Devin Green, 94% free throw shooter. Doesn't take a lot, but he scores 11.5 points a game, 5 rebounds. Another double figure is Jeremiah Sparks, Brendan Molson at 9 points a game, and really 3 more guys who could be in double figures easily enough. Christian Simmons, Aki Anderson, and Caleb Cook. That's a lot of guys. That's a lot of ability to find options and rebounds and assists and whatever. Is it about the depth this year? Is it about the ability to have multiple options?
I think so. Yeah, this has been a year where our identity has been a lot different than what it's been in years past when we've, played in the NCAA tournament and a couple of years made the Sweet 16. We've been we're a lot quicker. We're a lot more athletic. Our teams in the past have been a lot more half court oriented. This team really has the ability to push pace, and we've got a lot of options. I think we have 10 guys that are averaging double figure minutes, which has been atypical of our teams in the past. So I think it's probably makes us a difficult prep for teams because we've got 8 or 9 guys that can get 20 points in a college game, and we've been able to win games in a lot of different ways. We've won games with our defense. You see our score against RPI. We won, it was 59-46 in a half court game, defensive oriented game. And then we've won games where we've scored in the hundreds. So we've shown the ability to do things. I think that's a really important quality to have when you get into March, because you're going to face a lot of teams that maybe you don't know if you're fortunate enough to make it that far. And, it's been really a fun team to coach because we haven't been the typical Oswego team that we've been in the past. And so it's given us a little bit of rejuvenation to coach the game in a little bit different fashion than what we've done in the past.
The weather ain't kind up there in Oswego. Let's be fair. On the other side of the lake from where Todd McGuinness is sitting, I'm curious how do you entice one? I like the town of Oswego. I visited it. It's a cool little lake town, but the middle of winter can be brutal. How do you entice them, or you just lie to them? Just tell them the winters are fine.
I don't think you can lie about any type of weather in upstate New York, Dave. You know that from having roots up this way.
True.
I guess the only thing I've ever said to a recruit is, like, if you're going to choose a school based on weather or location, we might not be the choice, but we've got so many great things going on at our place, a supportive administration, and we've got so many different majors, and then being in the reality is in Division III, so many of these decisions get made based on cost and finances, and that's something that we're going to have in our favor more times than not in recruiting battles, just because of state costs. So there's a lot of great things. Our central location, the tradition we've had in basketball here, especially over the last 10 or 15 years, has been really good in comparison to our region. And we've got some NCAA tournament appearances here over the last 10 years, more times than not, that have really helped us attract good players.
Before I let you go, how do you see the conference shaking out? Obviously, you're on top. Geneseo sitting behind you at 6-1 in conference play. Brockport's looking pretty tough. So he's going on to. Is this your conference to win, or are there going to be others who are going to make your life miserable, and maybe they've got as good a chance?
Oh, I think there's a long way to go. I mean, especially this year. Listen, you're going through testing protocols, things like that. You really don't know game in and game out who's going to have who, and and then you made mention of like the schedule changing and things like that. So I've been in the league long enough to know, it's the worst thing you can do. I actually talked to my team about it today. Is I think humility is a really good thing, and I think the second you think you're on top, or you think you got things figured out, that's usually when you're most ripe to get beat. So we're certainly in a spot right now where we're in first place, but we know there's a long way to go, and playing everybody twice, and ultimately, if we make the conference tournament and are playing for a championship at some point this year, we're going to play teams a third time. So there's a long way to go. Brockport, has probably been hit the hardest with some things, with injuries and COVID and stuff like that. So they're a team that really has a lot of talent that I've been impressed with. New Paltz and Oneonta are playing very well. They're probably the two teams I haven't watched play at all yet. Just we haven't gotten to that point in the season. And our opponent on Saturday, Cortland, has probably improved the most since the first semester until where they are now. So it's, as you always mention on your show, it's a topsy-turvy league. I think we're one of the only leagues in the country that has had 5 different schools out of the 10 win the conference over the last 10 or 11 years. So that's a tribute to the parity of the league. So, we're certainly in a position that we are happy about right now, but we know, there's a long way to go here left in the season, a lot of games to be played.
Yeah, sure. Well, I appreciate the perspective on that. Quickly, before I let you go, though, I got to ask, how is the other real true Hoopsville fan in the house?
She's doing great. She's upstairs. I'm sure she's watching on her own laptop up there, but she's doing great, getting the kids to bed, her normal routine here. So, at night, but yeah, she's doing great. Started a new job. She's doing well and always follows your show and follows the website. So she thinks you do a great job.
I couldn't resist, sir. I had to ask.
She's angry. She's angry you didn't come down to meet us before the game though, for a little pregame festivities though.
Yeah.
Down in Baltimore.
Well,
I will say that.
Yeah, you should tell her about the late notice.
She wanted me to make sure I told you that.
You got to tell her about the late notice. Need a little more time.
Come on, Dave. You never own anything. You're always putting it back on me. Come on, man.
That's how it works with our relationship.
Did McGuinness say anything to you about my golf game or anything?
No, he didn't.
He was on before me.
He was
Okay,
kind.
I didn't think.
Do you need to
I
say
didn't think
something
he
about
would.
it?
Well, he was saying he was going to mention something about how he would beat me in golf, but I'm down to a 7 handicap now, so I don't think he can take me anymore.
Now, is that on the front 9 or the whole 18?
Well played, Dave. Well played.
You're welcome. You're
well
welcome.
played.
I was going to ask if that was the first 4, but I decided to go with 9.
Yeah. So
he's
winning a lot of games. He's winning a lot of games now, so he's got a lot of excess confidence now.
There you
I
go.
Got to make sure I keep him in check.
Well said. Hey, got to let you go, but I love chatting with you.
Yep.
Congrats on the great
likewise,
season.
my friend.
Please
Yeah,
tell the
I'm glad-
wife
I'm
I said
glad-
hello. And as
I
always,
will.
we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those tuned in?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say, because I know we talked a lot last year. I'm glad to see that you're doing well, and I know you had some stuff going on there, and I'm glad you're in good health and doing well now. So I want to say, I was thinking about you over the last year, and that's great. And as always, thanks for doing everything you do for Division III hoops. It's awesome to have the notoriety that we get, and I'm seeing more and more people that I'm a new social media guy within the last 12 months here. So, all the people that cover our sport, just from bracketology to, the weekly updates and all that stuff. I just think it's awesome. All the people that are doing that stuff. It gives it a real feel that of excitement.
No, it does. It is a lot of fun. It's changed a lot too in the last 10 years, but welcome to the
Absolutely.
social media, sir. You'll hate it enough soon enough. But we appreciate you coming on. Take care, stay warm, and we'll look forward to talking to you down the road.
Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely. He's Jason Leone. Join us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline. Take a break. When we come back, we will talk women's basketball one more time. We'll head all the way out to the West Coast. By the way, before you correct me, I am fully aware that Cleveland is off on Lake Erie and Oswego's off Lake Erie. I was just messing around about the lakes. When we come back, we go all the way out to California to talk Redlands women's basketball. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. I want to thank our partners, of course, at the NABC. The NABC, the National Association of Basketball Coaches, works to further the best interests of the game of basketball and the coaches and players who participate in the sport. The NABC thanks its nearly 5,000 member coaches, including the many Division III coaches who impact our game, for upholding the core values of leadership, advocacy, service, education, and inclusion. For more information on the NABC, you can go to nabc.com.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. That's what you have here tonight. That's what you've earned here tonight. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference. For the love of the game. But for those of us who are Division III student athletes, it's more than that. A lot more.
Sure, the game is important. But as we work so hard to build both mind and body, it's more about team.
That is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. If you got questions for us, email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can also tweet us. Twitter was apparently down there for a bit, but it's back up at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can also join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Though we're not live streaming the show there. Long story. Don't really know the answer. And, of course, we're on YouTube at youtube.com/Hoopsville as well. Some people are in there. We appreciate you tuning in. If you ask a question, we'll try and get it answered like we did with Travis earlier on. If you've emailed the show, don't worry. I'll get to that in just a moment. I promise. Keeping track of the NCAA convention, we'll wrap up the show with some thoughts on things after this next segment. I had our top 25 double take on earlier, talking about a deep dive team. Gonna have to talk to the guys, Brendan and Scott, a little bit about that, because the deep dive I want is somebody that no one's really talking about or barely voting for. Their deep dives are good, don't get me wrong. Marietta at 16 maybe doesn't qualify, but maybe that's a debatable. But we'll fine tune it with the guys. Those on the men's side have been doing this for a few years. One team you could have picked as a deep dive, Redlands women's basketball. I know when I mentioned that I was getting them on the show, Gordon Mann messaged me and said, that's a good pick. They deserve some attention. So I look like a genius now because, every once in a while, a blind squirrel does find a nut. Out of Sunyac, one of the things is I went looking around for a team to talk about out of that Region 10, and we hadn't talked about out of California too much, so I jumped in the Sunyac and said, let me just double check what's going on out there. I missed a chance to see some Sunyac games in November, but I want to see what's going on. Oh my goodness, has anyone checked out Redlands? They're 11-2 on the season, 7-0 in conference play, a game and a half up on Pomona Pederson, who overall is 8-6. The only other team having as good a season overall is Lutheran at 9-6, but they're 2-5 in conference play. This decision's easy. Joining us on the Blue Frame Technology Hoopsville hotline, as soon as I block out all the graphics I don't want you to see because I don't have them up right. Joining us on the hotline is the head coach of the Redlands women's basketball team. It's Coach Murphy, Rich Murphy, I should say. Coach, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time. Good to see you.
Oh, like I said, whenever you reach out, I know we're having a good season, so I'm excited to be here with you.
And as I said to you, I think it would be awkward if I reached out to teams who are having bad seasons. The segments just probably wouldn't be as good.
Absolutely.
Hey, again, your team's having a great year. What jumped out at me is how you're having such a significantly better year than some of the Sunyacs, at least at this juncture. Again, Pomona Pederson 6-2 in conference play, but they're 8-6 overall. So only 2 wins out of conference. I know COVID did a wonder out there in California, and especially with the Sunyac and whether it could play.
Yep.
What is it about that you guys have got now and doing well now, because we'll get into statistics, they jumped out at me too, that is working and got you right now head and shoulders above your colleagues?
Well, I don't want to say we're head and shoulders above our colleagues because
Sure.
I don't believe
That's
at
fair.
all. The Sunyac is a really good conference. It always has been.
That's true.
We don't get noticed very often, and we understand we're on the West Coast, so we don't get the same recognition sometimes as the Midwest and the East, and we fully understand that. But the competition here is really good. I mean, and I'm proud to be in the Sunyac, to be honest with you, because we get a lot of great kids that come into our conference and a lot of great players. And we're having a really good year, but we've had our ups and downs. I mean, I had to play a game with only 2 starters due to COVID, and we just recently got our whole team back on Saturday. So I've been very impressed with my players who are going through such a horrible thing out here and continue to play, continue to work, and continue to have success.
Well, again, having success at 7-0 and 11-2 in conference play is nothing to shake a stick at. You've got wins over Linfield and Willamette, a loss to Wheaton, but a win over Pacific, Claremont Mudscripts, and Whittier, a win over Wartburg, which may not be having as great a season as we're used to, but it's still a good team. And then in conference, wins over Chapman, Caltech, Cal Lutheran, Pomona Pederson, and Laverne so far. And one game against Northwestern, unfortunately, didn't get played. And we have a non-conference game in there or a non-Division III game in there against Masters, which is, I guess, hard for us to understand. I want to start there. Okay, you played Masters, you beat them by 60. Who's Masters, except the golf tournament that we know outside of Atlanta, Georgia?
Actually, Masters at an NAIA school. And, we struggle to get teams to come out here. So we have to fill a roster. We want to play the 25 games. And so we put Masters on the roster, on the schedule for us. The thing that happened is we were playing Whittier. We were supposed to play Whittier the week before, and Whittier had to change due to finals. And so we played Whittier on a Tuesday, and then we had Masters on a Thursday, and then we had Wartburg on a Saturday. Well, when we got to Masters, I'm thinking, I got to rest my kids for Wartburg, because I know how important it is to play against a nationally ranked team and to show well against them.
Sure.
So we kind of let Masters just kind of slip by. It was an NAIA. It wasn't that important to us. We understand rankings and all that kind of stuff. They don't even look at it. It does add us a loss, but to be honest
only
with you,
if somebody else played Masters.
Exactly. And to me, it wasn't something we were really trying to get done. What we were trying to get done was to get to Wartburg, because that was the most important game to us that week. And so
Logical.
we kind of let that one go, and then went after Wartburg as best as we could.
Logical. Certainly. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Listen, a lot of these games are interesting. I lost to Wheaton. I'm not, certainly dismissing that. I mean, that can be a blessing in some ways, because that's a tough team that you're most likely, or a similar team you're going to see in the tournament, should you get that far. You're also playing conference opponents or non-conference opponents that are very familiar with the Whitmans of the world that you may bump into in Linfield and Willamette.
Yep.
So in some ways, a lot of this schedule seems very purposely built, though coming out of COVID, I don't know if that's always the case. Was it purposely built? Did you kind of have a sense of what you had ahead of you?
I did. And I purposely built it in a way to get better competition.
Yeah.
Because that's important. We had Amherst. Amherst was coming here to play us, and they didn't make the trip because of COVID, and Northwestern was the same thing.
Yep.
We had to cancel because of COVID, because we only had 4 players when Northwestern was here, so it was purposely put that way to be competitive. I know all of us in our conference here in the SCIAC, we want to play really good teams. It's just harder for us to travel sometimes due to budget, of course, but at the same time, I'm always scheduling anybody I can. I'll take anybody to play us. I give credit to Wheaton coming out and playing us. Well, we were beating Wheaton for 35 minutes. 35 minutes of that game, we were ahead.
Yeah.
And the last 5, my kids just blew it. Let's be honest, So that was one that slipped through our fingertips. And when we got to Wartburg, I talked to the girls and said, hey, we're not going to let this slip through our hands like we did with Wheaton. And they put the challenge on and made sure it didn't happen.
Obviously, I forgot about the loss of the Amherst game because we lost them out in Vegas, and this seems a little bit ill-timed. But have you looked at events where you leave? And I don't want to say I was going to say the comforts of home or the comforts of the West Coast, but have you looked at options? Because I've seen some. I'm starting to see a little bit more out of SCIAC teams, even on the men's side, to go, okay, hold on. We need to do a little bit more and head a little east. Whether it's just to Vegas to the D3Hoops.com Classic, granted, Amherst didn't make that either. We didn't have a women's side this year. Or it's getting out to the Midwest. It's getting down to Texas. It's getting somewhere to play. I am completely curious, because I know not everybody has the same answer. Is that something you guys have tried to look into? If so, what's hampered you? And if not, what do those challenges mean then?
Well, 2 years ago, when we had our run, and we went and played at Transylvania, played in the tournament at Transylvania.
Yes. All right.
Transylvania. And I think it was Southern Virginia University. We also played at that.
I think that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we try, with us, when we're dealing with budgets and all this kind of stuff, it makes it difficult for us. Like every 3 years, they say you can go make a major trip. So I try to go find the best place to play the best teams. And to be honest with you, sometimes it's about finding the right place for these kids to go. Like one of my kids is from Massachusetts. I am trying really hard to get out a couple of games out in that area for her.
Sure.
So she could be closer to home. So those are the things we kind of look for when we're able to finally travel. Now, lately, our budget has been getting better, and we're trying to look to more to go to the Pacific Northwest and try to play those games up there. And then we're going to try to also get back to the Midwest as much as we can.
Makes total sense. And I appreciate the frankness on that. By the way, in Massachusetts, I always joke, you can't get an interstate exit without stumbling into a Division III school. So there's plenty out there. It's just the right ones to pick, I realize.
Absolutely.
Hey, listen, this team is getting a little bit of top 25 love. Not a lot. Maybe one voter voting them 24 is my guess. It isn't great. Obviously, there's more attention. there's only so much you guys can do. So I realize to you, to some degree, it's a shrug of your shoulders. But what is it about this team maybe voters aren't appreciating that maybe warrants more top 25 attention? Like, give us the ins and outs of this team. Tell us what makes you guys so good.
Well, my assistant coach sent me some stats.
Oh, okay. Well, good assistant coach.
Yeah, because now I got to put on my glasses.
Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry. You can have mine.
Hannah Jurier is 8th in the nation in field goal percentage. That's our post, our center. Okay. Alyssa Downs is 22nd in 3-point field goal percentage. Okay. Hannah Jurier is also number 35 in rebounds, and our point guard is 92nd in field goal percentage. As a team, we are 26th in field goal percentage in the nation. Okay. We're 32nd in fewest turnovers in the nation, 44th ATO ratio, 47th in scoring offense, 16th fewest fouls, which I guess isn't that big of a deal, but we don't foul. And we're 78th. We're 78th in free throws made and 76th in 3-point field goal percentage. So you're talking over 400 teams.
Yeah.
And we're putting these numbers up with individual players along with team things that we're doing. So to me, we're putting out the product out there. I just don't think it's getting seen. You know, you talk about a deep dive. Well, we're pretty deep. You know, we'll enjoy a dive anytime. You know, so we're always looking for it. But at the same time, we got to continue to win and we got to continue to produce, and we understand that.
Well, and to some degree, the struggles you have in Division III are also seen in Division I. I mean, it's talked about all the time, is how the Pac-12 doesn't get enough love, no matter the sport.
Right.
There's only idiots like me who are up late enough who are watching those kinds of things. So I get it. And having been on the West Coast myself on numerous occasions, there's a lot of benefits being out there timing wise. But the disadvantages, the bulk of people are not there.
Right.
And it makes it more challenging.
Absolutely.
And another thing that I find for you guys is a little bit challenging. You're on the furthest east, if memory serves, of the Sunyac.
Mm-hmm.
For you, unfortunately, you're driving into the craziness of LA while everybody else is, walking across the street per se. How much different is it being at Redlands as part of the Sunyac than it is the rest of the conference?
It's not bad. I mean, let's be honest. Our furthest conference opponent's an hour and a half away. Okay. So
it's not, well, on a good day with no traffic.
Exactly. It might take you 2.5. That's
there you
true.
go.
But for the most part, it's not a bad thing. I mean, I know some conferences out there that have a lot more travel than we do. Absolutely. Sure. And I'm in a conference that I love being in because I don't have to travel so much. I like sleeping in my own bed, and I like coming home to my family.
Fair.
And that's an important piece for me. So the travel isn't bad at all, to be honest with you. In our conference, it's pretty easy. Our kids don't miss class, and I take a lot of pride in that they don't miss class because, I preach kids, if you come to Redlands, it's all about getting your degree. And I'm going to be a hypocrite if I'm keeping you out of class all the time to make these major trips and stuff like that. So for us, it's not very difficult. It's not very difficult for anyone in our conference, to be honest with you. Like I said, that Cal-Lu, Redlands game, we want to have it on a Saturday if we can, but when it's in the middle of the week, it makes it a little bit tougher, but it's not, I don't think it's a disadvantage to us at all.
Your team led by Angelina, is it Rogue?
Yep.
15.5 points a game, 4 rebounds a game. Alyssa, as a junior, Alyssa Downs, a senior, 14 points a game, 4.8 rebounds a game. Both of them, by the way, 2 to 3 assists per contest as well. And then another senior in the center, Hera Jerrier. And Cheyenne, listen, great
first name.
Pagalinawan.
Pretty good.
All right.
Pretty good. Yeah.
That's the senior, 12 points a game. By the way, Jerrier, 11 rebounds a game, so she's averaging double-doubles, but it's Cheyenne who's got the 4 assists per game, and she's your top dealer, as it were. That's a pretty good foursome right there, and that takes nothing away from Balistreri or Tan or anybody the rest, but that foursome looks pretty good, and that's what jumped out at me. It seems like you got a lot of weapons with at least 4 on the floor. It's a pick-your-poison scenario.
Absolutely, and a lot of attention goes to Alyssa Downs because Alyssa Downs, 2 years in a row, breaking the 3-point record here at University of Redlands. She's a phenomenal outside shooter. She's an all-around really good player. And a lot of focus ends up on her, which allows our other players like Angelina Roque and Cheyenne and Hannah to get more openings. Angie's one of our best drivers to the basket and finishers that we have. She's phenomenal getting to the basket, no doubt about it. But that happens because we've got people staying out on downs, making sure she's not hitting her threes. Cheyenne, same thing. She's coming off pick and rolls with Hannah Jurrier. And when she turns the corner, they can't help in off of her because we have a good shooter in Alyssa Downs, So the four, and if you've watched, and I'm not saying you haven't watched any of our games, but what happens is we'll get someone who shows up different every game. Someone will show up different every game. Someone will focus on somebody and I'll get another kid showing up, and that's been the consistency that we've had that has helped us be real successful this year.
Do you feel you're in a position where an at-large is out of reach and you got to win the conference? I mean, winning the conference, we all know is the easiest way in. I'm not trying to diminish that. My point is, do you feel you have wiggle room, or is it all in on the SCIAC here?
I guess the wiggle room comes if we get ranked.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
We'll find out in a few weeks, right?
Yeah, and the end all to me is not being ranked. When it's all said and done, we just want to win games and we want to be productive and we want to get to the national tournament and we want to do something in the national tournament. Don't forget 2 years ago, we went out to Whitewater and won a first round game against the 8th-ranked team in the nation.
Yeah, okay? Pretty significant.
Yeah, and then we go and play Trine the next night, who played a game the night before. I think it was against Benedictine. I'm not sure who they played the night before, but ended up winning by 25, 30 points.
Right.
And we had to play our hearts out against Whitewater. And then to show up the next night and be only down 2 at halftime against Trine, we just ran out of gas, and we feel that we can play with anybody. And we felt that for the last couple of years. Of course, the last 2 years have kind of messed us up, but we feel we can play with anybody. And that's what we're going to continue to do. We're going to continue to improve as a program, as a conference, and continue to try to show everyone out there that we can compete. We really can. And a lot of times we end up beating up on each other, because we're so good in our conference. So
it feels like things have also changed on campus. There feels, and I'm coming from the East Coast, so it's more about reading. It's more about trying to read the tea leaves.
Yep.
But it feels like there's an impetus somewhere, who knows where, to push Redlands to be more competitive athletically. I remember, listen, a lot of schools go through this cyclically. I mean, my alma mater was really good when I was there. It ain't so good in the grand scheme of things now, but I know there's an effort.
Yeah.
I think when my brother was there at Redlands, if memory serves, pretty darn good in athletics in a lot of NCAA tournaments, though I might just be confusing memories that he's shared. It feels like there's a push to get football better. Well, of course, football was really good this year. To get men's basketball back in the conversation, to get your spring sports up and running. Is that fair, or have we just assumed that it hasn't always been that way?
I think it's fair, but I think we've always pretty much been this way.
Okay.
Hey, I went through a period of time where we were 14-12, 12-14, 12-14. And I'm thinking, man, I'm not very good at this anymore. I don't know what I was doing wrong. I felt like I lost my touch. I didn't feel good about what was going on. And we made a decision as a program ourselves to finally take some kids and say, do you really want to be here? And make a change and bring in kids who wanted to be 100% in. And when we made that change is when we made that run. We've got to find kids who want to buy in 100% and be part of a program that I think is really special. And what really helped me when we did really well, I thanked those kids afterward and said, man, I think I still am pretty good as a coach, but when it's all said and done, it comes down to the players that you're able to bring in and their commitment to the programs. Coach Brilton, of course, him, that's a huge addition to our university, along with Jim Good, our football coach, who has just been hired. These are additions that the university is putting in play to make sure that we are getting better. We have a new President Newkirk, at the university. She is phenomenal. She is so supportive of athletics. It's not even, the tweets, the responses she gives to all the programs is phenomenal, and how much she's all in. So when you've got an environment where people are coming all in, then you're going to have success. And we're going to continue to push that as far as we can.
I'm taking more of your time, but you kind of brought something up that I kind of was curious about. So you talk about also being the student athlete, they got to graduate. You don't want to take class time away, but at the same time, dedicated to the program. How much of A, is that a balancing act, especially from your perspective? And B, how difficult is it to find the student athletes? I mean, we know they exist. We see them in the UAA. We see them in the NESCAC. But how difficult is it to find them for you guys?
We're in California. You know how many colleges are in California?
A lot.
So it's hard, to try to find these kids. And let's be honest, every kid wants to go D1. Every kid wants to be, if they can't go
the
D1,
glory of the scholarship that just isn't really glory.
Absolutely. They want to post it on social media. They want everyone to see, where they're going and all that kind of stuff. I still recruit those kids because I tell those kids all the time, listen, if you're good enough to play there, imagine how much you'd play here. If
Great,
you'll
ride the bench there, but you'll play for something here.
If you really love basketball and you really want to play, go somewhere you'll play. Doesn't even have to be Redlands. Go somewhere where you'll actually play and not sit on the bench for a couple of years and hope they don't recruit over you.
Yeah, true.
That happens in some places. I'm not going to say all places.
Oh no, it happens. It happens everywhere. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
If talent comes along that's going to make your program better and is better than talent you already recruited, you're a fool not to bring that talent in, even if you just kind of submarine talent you already brought in. You lose your job otherwise.
Absolutely.
And that's true even at the Division III level.
True.
When nothing's promised.
Right. And that's the whole thing. I tell kids all the time, you want to come here and play, but I ain't promising you anything.
Yeah.
You got to come and prove it.
It'd be interesting how many text messages I've gotten from some who are like, oh my gosh, we haven't even applied to the school yet. And the coach has already told us he's got a spot on his team for him. I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right. I mean,
that's
a lot of things to jump through first, like the application.
Yeah, that's a little piece. You got to have good grades, test scores, all that stuff's important.
And then you still got to show up and be on campus. You still got to
show up and live on campus, and then you got to pay for it.
Well, true.
We're not a public school. Some of the Midwest schools, that don't have the high cost that we have. It's expensive to come to Redlands. It's
true.
So
hey, I'd talk to you more, but I know you got better things to do, and I do appreciate.
I actually don't, so I'm good. If you want to, no, okay.
I love it. We'll solve all of D3's problems then. Let's chat.
Hey, no problem here.
I appreciate the time, really do. Great conversation. Thank you very much. As always, though, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share from inside the mountains, as it were, out there in Southern California?
Well, I know right now it's about 72 degrees and sunny. So if you don't want to come to Redlands, I don't know why. Let me tell you, it's nice out here right now. What are we in January? Yeah, that's normal for us. So
yeah.
Think about
I experienced it in November, sir. 90 degrees that wasn't humid either was nice.
No humidity at all. But I want to thank you, Dave. I appreciate this opportunity. I always do. I love D3. I love our conference. I think it's so great to find kids who get it, who want to get a degree and want to get on with their life after basketball. And to me, I love that. I love having these kids in my program. I love seeing these kids throughout the D3 nation because they got it. They get it. Academics is so important. And I appreciate getting those kids in my program and other programs that I see. So I just appreciate you giving us the time on the West Coast. And like I said 2 years ago, don't forget about us because we're for real. Okay.
Oh yeah. I'm not forgetting. I'm just waiting. I'm looking forward. That's not even a shot. I'm looking forward to it. I'm waiting. The men
hopefully we get put in a place where we can actually compete and not get thrown, in the first round against the 8th ranked team in the nation right off the bat,
So you should probably get ready for the 8th ranked team in the nation, though I would argue maybe a dubious pick. I don't know.
We'll take anybody. Let's be honest. We will take anybody.
No, I know you will. Hey, enjoy it out there, sir. Well, not too much. Try and enjoy it. And next November, should I be honored to be out there again, I will try and get in for a game.
I would absolutely love to have you anytime.
Oh, I would love to be there. Trust me. We'll see if it works out this year. You just got to get a couple home games early in your schedule. No pressure.
I'll do it. You tell me when you're coming. I'll schedule it for you.
Sounds good. It's a little challenging. I usually find out at the last minute, but I'm willing to see how this works out.
Sounds good to me.
Hey, Rich, take care of yourself. Great chat. We'll look forward to talking to you down the road.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
He is Rich Murphy, head coach of the Redlands women's basketball program. Again, they are 11-2 overall, 7-0 in conference play. Coming up next, they got Claremont Mud Scripps and Occidental on the road. and then Pomona, Pitzer, and Whittier at home. Good to chat with them. Fun talk. When we come back, we'll just wrap things up and give you a sense of things from the NCAA convention as well. You listen to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. Back with more after this.
This is why NCAA Division III teamed up with Special Olympics. And in giving the gift of sport to those for whom it seemed an impossible dream, we are working to make this a better world.
Help us keep that dream alive.
You can make a difference.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III.
I did receive academic scholarships. Just being involved on campus, being a leader, all those things combined kind of get me recognized. It's a great experience for me.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. As we wrap up the show, a little quick thank you to my son, Andy. He's been dealing with being on the show, as I've promised him over the years to finally could. And then we have technical issues up the wazoo every night that's different, which means we're going to have more conversations with people about why. But he was in here. You might have seen him sneak out the door during one of our segments. He had to get to bed because, well, there wasn't anything he was doing because we isolated it back into our main system here. And on top of that, he's got school tomorrow. But I appreciate him all the same. It's fun to have him in here. A couple things to wrap up. Did not get a chance to mention Oswego's big win over Platteville. I was talking to a coach earlier today, and by the way, you don't know who because I talk to lots of coaches in a given day. He thinks Oswego's the second best team in the country. Interesting argument. I would love to kind of dive into that one a little bit more. But Oswego, good program. Platteville's pretty solid. That was a really good game. Looking forward to going back on that one and taking a look. I didn't get to watch it as much as I wanted to. We'll go back and watch some more of it. The top 25, I think, is fascinating. I'm not so locked in anymore as I would. I'm pretty locked in on Macon. The question is, do they become the unanimous number one pick now that Platteville lost? I don't know. There may be some who say, including myself, who would tell you Platteville losing in the WIAC is not a surprise, especially to an Oshkosh team's number 5. So Platteville may not lose first place votes, and I would be completely understanding of anybody who decides not to dump those votes. They may stay number 2. They are, 42 points ahead of Illinois Wesleyan. Honestly, I'm still a little weirded out by Illinois Wesleyan being number 3, but with WashU 4 doing the head-to-head. But anyway, Oshkosh 5. Some good games are out there, folks. Go out there and check them out. On the women's side, Hope continues to win. I think their winning streak's up to 60 now. They're 16-0. They were supposed to play Alma, but that game's already been postponed. So their next game up is Trine. So big matchup coming up next Wednesday against Trine for Hope. Keep an eye on that one. Only because you just never know what might happen. That game, of course, being played at Hope makes it certainly much harder to trying to win at DeVos. But still, you never know. You just never know. Christopher, Newport, Transylvania, Simpson, and Trine rounded out your top 5 on the women's side. No change there except that Amherst fell from 3 to 7 with their loss. Of course, they've only played a handful of games. They got a bunch of makeups possibly. And that's the other thing that's going to jump out here is we're going to have a bunch of teams that don't have their full complement of 25 games by the time we get to conference tournaments. And I've already answered this a few times to personal messages. No, I don't think that's a big deal. Remember, part of the criteria is not wins and losses. It's win-loss percentage. So they look at the percentage more than the hard numbers of wins and losses. What I think will be interesting is if a team is significantly off and needs an exemption because they're not going to get to the minimum of, 18 games, I think, or 20 games that you must play to be NCAA eligible. If a team's in that situation, that will make a much bigger impact. But otherwise, they're looking at win-loss percentages. The only time where losing games is going to is going to hurt is comparables, head-to-heads and results versus regionally ranked opponents. Did you have 2 or 3 games against opponents that would be in those conversations? Then that's where it's going to hurt a bit. But more importantly, go out and win the conference. Granted, the NESCAC women, for example, completely on its head right now from what you're used to, because Bates, who we had on earlier in the show after they beat Bowdoin, is sitting on top of the conference with Trinity of Connecticut 3-0. Both of them are 11-3. Bowdoin's 13-3, 3-1, and then it's Amherst, who's now 10-1 and 2-1, and Tufts 12-2, 2-1. It's just a very interesting women's race in the NESCAC with extra players in there that I think a lot of people weren't expecting. And then on the men's side of things, we talked about it on the top 25 double take on Monday. Middlebury's 13-2, 4-0 in conference play. No one expected that, I don't think. Wesleyan's 15-1, 3-0 in conference play, certainly playing well. Williams, are they, that 13-1 we debated. Trinity Connecticut's 1-1 in conference, technically ahead of Amherst, who's 2-2 in conference. So those are the places where some of those games that we've spotted aren't going to be made up, but we'll see how it all works out. NCAA convention, again, the Constitution passed. 80% of the all members voted in favor of the new Constitution. That was above the 2/3 majority needed to ratify that. I've gotten a number of people who are disappointed. Again, as I said at the beginning of the show, I don't know what to tell you. It wasn't the best deal for Division III at all. Not going to pretend it was. But on the flip side of that, it wasn't going to get much better. We could all bitch and moan that Division I's not giving Division III the respect it deserves, and especially the spotlight used on Division III. But how are you going to change that equation? I just don't know how you change that. Voting down the Constitution doesn't change that, and I don't know what message it sends. So it is what it is. Just a heads up for those of you wondering, a couple pieces of business. First off, if you're wondering about regional rankings, they will come out well into February. Remember, we have 3 weeks of regional rankings. So we won't see the first regional rankings until February 9th. So that is, 3 weeks from now? 3 weeks from now will be our first regional rankings. I'm sorry, February 8th. A reminder, in basketball, what they're doing this year is they're going to release them on Tuesday the 8th, or on Tuesdays this year. So they're going to have all their meetings on rack-wise on Mondays, national meetings on Tuesday. So the first rankings will be the 8th. Thus, we have penciled in February 3rd to be our marathon. So be on the lookout February 3rd for our first marathon. That'll come out after the mock rankings have been done, and I say that just because they do some work the week ahead of time in the racks and national. And hopefully we'll talk to both chairs about things. Also, some piece of business. The next, believe it or not, the next 3 Hoopsvilles are going to be afternoon shows. Due to COVID and the complications and some other things, and it might be even more than 2. Let's see, 1 or 3. 1, 2, 3. 4 of the next 5 shows are going to be afternoon shows at this point in time because we have games that are being made up. So starting Monday the 24th, we're going to be on either at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to finalize that time. Just has to do with timing some other things. Probably 1 o'clock. 27th, we're going to have to be on at 1 o'clock. The 31st, we're going to have to be on 1 o'clock. Then the marathon on the 3rd, and then a 1 o'clock game show on the 7th. I've been asked to do some games on all of those days, and that takes priority, unfortunately. So we may not return to our 7 o'clock slot until February 10th. So if you're following at home, 24th, the 27th, and the 31st of January will be on in the afternoon, most likely about 1 o'clock. The 3rd supposedly will be the marathon at this point, so we'll be on a good chunk of the day, anywhere from, we'll figure it out. We may 8 to 12 hours is usually how we do our marathon. Then the 7th will be on in the afternoon, and then we'll return to our normally scheduled, actually, we can't even return to the normal schedule on the 10th. That's probably going to be a pre-taped show because I need to go out of town. So we may not be back to our regularly scheduled broadcast until the 14th of February. I apologize. The show's on demand. The show is available on the podcast. There's ways you can tune in. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is, and I can't do anything about it. I apologize. I want to double check some scores real quick before we leave because I know there were some big games up, and I want to make sure we don't get a surprise before we go off the air that we should have listened to. Travis says, what is the regulars? Oh, by the way, regional rankings, I meant to mention, men have priority opening weekend, reminder. What is the reason teams are capped at 25 regular season games? Budget. Because you have to have a regular season cap in all sports. If you look at Division I, even they have caps at how many games you can play in the regular season. Max. Otherwise, teams would go out there and schedule a bunch because they can afford it, and other teams wouldn't. So you have a cap. So in football, for example, it's 10 games in Division III. Soccer, I think it's 18 or 20. It's 40, I think, in baseball and softball. I could have that number wrong, but I want to say it's 40. In basketball, it's 25. There's also a minimum to qualify. You can't go out there and play 10 games and say, hey, look at us. We're great. So I think that's 18 or 20 games is the minimum. 25 is your max. And by the way, just to be clear, your conference tournament counts as one game. So you can go out there and schedule 24 games if you have a conference tournament. Your conference tournament as a whole counts as the 25th game. So you could play 2 rounds, 3 rounds, or 4 rounds. It counts as a 25th game. That way, that one's even as well. So people don't get screwed by bigger conference tournaments. That's why you'll see in the UAA, they'll only play 25 games total because there's no conference tournament. Whereas you'll see another team who has a conference tournament play 28 games. It's a little quirky. That's how it is. Why is the number 25 not 27? I think it breaks down to how many games can reasonably be fit in to the allowed amount of weeks of games being played. I don't have a better answer to that, but I think it's basically a ratio of how many games can logically be played during a season. What is it? A 19-week schedule, considering there's practices. There's a math there. I'll go double check. I mean, and that's why baseball and softball, for example, have more because they play double headers. And so it gets a little convoluted. And volleyball had that problem as well. So there's a math there. I can certainly go get a better answer for you. I'll double check it. I also want to get a better answer because some of the topics that are going to be coming up in Division III are going to revolve around a lot of this. For example, last year we had the amount of days you could be with your team versus the amount of weeks. A lot of people like the days idea. It kind of solved a lot of the things we talked about in the past. So don't be surprised if they tweak that. If they tweak that, what else can get changed? Not games. I don't think games will be changed. There was an effort not so long ago to cut it down to 21 games. Anyway, so that's the easy answer, Travis, but I'll try and get a more updated answer if I can somewhere down the road. If for you tuned in and you missed some of the show because of our tech issues, I apologize. We will upload a better visual version of the show. And if you're listening to the podcast, you don't know what we're talking about because hopefully there were no issues with the podcast that we upload as well. NCAA Constitution, again, things to keep an eye on. Red shirt, whether it will pass, not pass, or be what I call tabled or pushed off to another year. We have, this is strictly for basketball, and the AQ. The AQ is the other one to look at, whether they'll reduce the number to 6, just because it's an interesting situation. The AQ is more about other sports. Red shirt is about everybody. There's also some other other items out there that are worth keeping an eye on. Again, I encourage you, if you really want to learn more about Division III, what it's battling, what it's considering, what it's tackling, it's all that stuff. Log on to that's interesting. Sorry, I'll get to that in a second. Log on to our website and go to our last show, the special that we put together about D3 being at the crossroads. Really good conversation. Just realized that when we tweeted out the Go Redlands, we grabbed the wrong picture and grabbed the Barry picture. So there you go, just to add to our fun tonight. So that's going to do it. We'll be back on the air Monday. Again, afternoon show, 1 or 2 o'clock. We'll double check and just stay with us on Twitter where we'll answer those questions or give you a sense of what time we're on. I want to thank our guests, Todd McGuinness from Case Western Reserve, Margaret White from Marymount, Jason Leone from Oswego State, Rich Murphy from Redlands, and of course I want to thank Brendan and Scott for joining us for the double take. I want to thank the SIDs at Case Western Reserve, Marymount, Oswego, and Redlands for their help as well for getting our show on the air. I want to thank D3 Photography for when they give us pictures that we can use. I want to thank our friends at D3 Hoops as well for their support, especially with that NCAA convention show. Pat really helped me make sure to put a bow on it in joining me on the show, but also making sure to get its due attention as well. I want to thank our partners at the National Association of Basketball Coaches, Women's Basketball Coaches Association, of course, Blue Frame Technology and their Team One Sports app. If you happen to be watching this on the big screen, that's how you're doing it, and we certainly appreciate it. Stay safe, everybody. Safe travels as well. And anybody of you who are out at the convention, safe travels back as well. Appreciate it. Wish we were out there, but I guess we would just be doing another day show, considering how many we've got booked in the next week. Again, a reminder, we'll be on the air for day shows the next 3 shows, Monday, Thursday, Monday. The next 3 shows will be on the air in the middle of the afternoon. And other changes coming. Stick with us on Twitter. We'll give you an update on all of that. You've been listening to Hoopsville. If you want to talk Division III basketball, you've got to listen to Hoopsville. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.